Hi, Susan. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yes, excited to have you. I think a lot of our listeners probably heard your chat at the Reimagining Health Summit, which I was amazing, and everybody kind of resonated so much with that. So we're looking forward to kind of having a little bit of a different chat today. So thanks for being here.
For sure. Yeah, I'm excited.
All right. What I would love to do to start is could you share with our listeners a little bit about what you're currently doing with your IHP certification, maybe how you found us and what you were doing before that and kind of what led you to IHP? And then we'll kind of get into our topic of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I'm currently doing with IHP, it's actually quite funny. So thankful for the program because I've been a practitioner for over a decade in the functional health space. And I have gone through multiple programs and clinicals and all the things, and didn't find IHP till recently. But what I'm doing with it is if you were able to track my logins on the level 2 modules and how many times I am referencing Dr. Cabral's lessons on test results and interpreting tests and case studies, it's like I have used and abused that section of the program. And the other day I had this thought. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope they never take that away. Like I use it so much. So I just am so thankful for, level 2 in that aspect of, with 10 years behind my belt of being a practitioner, I have not found another program that does such a good job at helping you understand how to really understand and interpret all the different tests. So that's how I'm currently using it. I need to go into level 3. I have paid for it. I'm set up to go into it. I just need to find the time to do that. And then how I found IHP. So it's kind of funny. We were living in Mexico the last 2 years. We just moved back to the States in March. And one of my dear friends and colleagues, they own Hope for Cancer, Dr. Tony and Marcy Jimenez. And Marcy and I were having breakfast in Mexico. She was down visiting the clinic. And she said, Susan, I have to introduce you to this guy named Dr. Cabral. He's amazing. We just met with him. The education he's doing, the supplements he's created, like you really need to consider bringing this in because I'm in the cancer space as well. And I was like, well, I've never heard of him. I'd never heard of IHP. And this was just a year and a half ago. And so right away, she gave me Johnny's number and I called him and I was like, hi, I was told to connect with you. And so fast forward, immediately enrolled in level 1, 2, and 3, bought the 21-day detox, waited a little. I was like, do I want to do this? Did it. Amazing. Got my husband, who is not a practitioner. We own a private practice here in San Diego, and he works with me, but he does the operations side. But he was so tired of hearing Dr. Cabral's voice, I think, honestly, when I'm like walking around listening to modules, that he was finally like, should I do this too? I was like, yes, please. So he enrolled. So we're both going through, I don't know if he's finished level 1 or not, but yeah, that's how we found it. We're both, my husband and I, and even my kids will be like, is that Dr. Cabral's voice? Like everybody knows the household name now. So yeah, that's kind of how I found you guys and got involved in this program and company. And now we carry, if you walked into my front part of my office, you would see our shelves are loaded with Equilife products and we drop ship Equilife products. And so, yeah, we're big fans.
Oh, that's great. Dr. Tony, we're all big fans of his around here. What a remarkable man. And it sounds like you're doing some of the same beautiful work. So you own a clinic in the States.
Yes, correct.
And can you share with our listeners a little bit about what your specialty is? Because I think it's real niche and there's a beautiful story behind it.
Yeah. So I work in the pediatric cancer space. We also, through our private practice, we see adults as well. And we really focus on active people who are going through active cancer treatment, whether they're working with someone like Dr. Tony and doing an integrative approach or a totally natural approach, or they're taking the conventional side. Whichever direction they go, we come along as part of their team. We won't work with somebody if they don't have a signing provider because we are so complementary in how we support them. But my specific specialty is pediatric cancer, going through active treatment and remission, and how to support their bodies, support their terrain to withstand the really toxic but necessary treatment and recover and not be a statistic to all the side effects that comes with it. And so we got into this because my own son, who's now almost 15, in another week, he'll be 15, he was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia when he was almost 3 years old. And we kind of have this story that unfortunately I've heard this more recently than ever before. Our story was we were really natural. I was already a health practitioner. I'd actually just finished my first program in training, opened my private practice, working out of a pediatrician's office. And so my son went from breast milk to bone broth. Like we really were very natural. And so it was really alarming and really shocking when we received this diagnosis. And I've heard that a lot more now. And there's a lot that can speak to that. So he went through the required 3.5 years of chemotherapy every single day and tons of surgeries. And he really, by definition, thrived through treatment. He did jujitsu, he skied, he was just a healthy little boy, despite the fact that there was a short period of time he was bald and he was taking chemo every day. And I really attribute that to the support that we had and the education we received, that we can actually support his body alongside the conventional team.
Of course, yes. And I think the lab testing and the whole process in general speaks to the fact that, we kind of have this all or nothing mindset, or a lot of times I think in the social media space, it's kind of, whose approach is best, should you do this or should you do that? And it's really about creating this collaborative plan to support the body as best as you can. And sometimes it takes conventional methods along with holistic, and there's no like one size fits all, you're right, you're wrong. When you can kind of take this well-rounded approach, there can be thriving outcomes.
Absolutely. And what people don't realize about pediatric cancer specifically is that you are actually in the United States and in Canada and a few other countries as well, you are required by federal law to go through your child. If they're under 18 and they're diagnosed, they have to go through conventional treatment. They don't have a choice like adults do, where as an adult, if you're diagnosed, you can choose to go to Hope for Cancer, Dr. Tony's clinic, and that's where you receive all of your treatment. You don't have to do chemotherapy or radiation or surgery, but children don't have that choice, and neither do the parents. And so I realized really quickly how essential it was that we got these families this education. And we did teach them about what functional testing they can do, what nutrition they should follow, what gentle detox and supplementation, because the doctors aren't telling them that, right? And you're right. You can. I watched firsthand. I walked through it, and now have walked through it with hundreds, if not thousands of families. They can coexist. You can be taking chemotherapy, eating a nutrient-dense diet, and really still withstand the treatment, have it work, and lessen the side effects.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked so much on this podcast about how our own stories can, we can use our own stories for connection, for trust, for offering hope. And, you would be an amazing practitioner had you not had your own personal story. But the fact that you're able to relate to other moms, other parents, caregivers, and understand just the depth of emotion that they're walking through is probably so meaningful to so many of your patients. Dr. Tony, when he opened his speech this year at RHS, I'll never forget, I think he used the words, the most powerful molecule is hope.
Yep.
Was that correct? Am I saying?
Yep.
I think it was, something to that effect. But because you're a walking hope story, you're able to lead with that in your practice. And that is so meaningful, I'm sure, to so many families.
I have a lot of parents tell me that, the reason we chose to work with you, and I always say, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the best practitioner in the world. There are so many people out there that are far more educated and far more eloquent in all the things they do, but I know exactly what it's like. And so that delivery of hope is so real. And I have parents tell me all the time, there's trust because you know what it feels like. And then I always like to share my son Kicker and hey, he's out surfing right now. You have so much to look forward to. Don't lose hope, and so it is helpful.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm sure it's, so helpful for them. What I would love to kind of shift to next is how are you using kind of functional medicine lab testing? So we know that the conventional model, works on killing the cancer, right? That there's lots of ways that that is going to help with getting rid of the problem, but how kind of addressing the root cause is so important, and how you're kind of using maybe some functional medicine lab testing, everything that you've learned with IHP to help these families uncover possibly things that, may have, presented some of the issues in the first place, or tell us a little bit about that process for you.
Yeah, it's what's so cool about functional testing is you no longer have to guess, right? You're testing to see what is going on, and then you can assess and help address literally like it's like a blueprint, really, especially when it's combined with, really thorough intake and the discussion, that initial interview with your client to understand their health history and everything that we learn from the program of how to conduct that initial conversation. And I want to make a quick note too, because as we see these like companies like Function Health and all these AI companies that are coming in and offering functional testing, it's great. Sure, it offers accessibility to so many people, but I want our practitioners to remember that they're missing a massive piece of the picture. And that is that personal connection, that personomics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that direct connection with the client and understanding their background, their childhood, all of those pieces. So I say that because functional testing is only a piece of it. We have to have all that information. And then with all that together, holy cow, like we can really help our clients. So when it comes to an active treatment diagnosis, when somebody is in conventional treatment and they're going through chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, we are fairly limited on the functional tests that we'll do only because those results can be so skewed. So for example, I wouldn't run an organic acids test. Sure. Or even a CSA, a stool test, the stool test. I wouldn't run either of those with a child or adult going through active treatment because the chemotherapy and the radiation just really don't give us a clear picture. Mm-hmm. So this kind of speaks to all of our practitioners who are working on root cause health, and they're not in the oncology space, but they're helping people create an environment cancer can't live in. This is why you have to be doing all these tests on your clients so you can get these alarms prior to any type of diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So the test that we do, and I'll come to remission after, and that opens up all the different cool testing we can do. The test that we do during active treatment, specifically, this is one that I'm hoping, I think I spoke with Erica at the conference about like, hey, could you guys bring in a nutrigenomics test and train our practitioners on nutrigenomics, which is genetics, but a bigger picture. So there's a test that I do that runs all 146 different genes, and it shows me what genes are highest impact on the individual, on the client. Mm-hmm. And while a nutrigenomic test doesn't give us actual expression of the genes, it tells us what the client is prone to. So for me, I can look at this test and I can see this is why this child is not handling the chemotherapy well, and this child is, because this child has all the methylation genes are impacted and their detoxification genes are impacted, right? So it's a beautiful way to kind of address, like, I know, and it's a saliva, it's so easy. So little kids, no problem. You just swab saliva. So it creates a kind of a foundational roadmap for me to know what nutrients, what foods they need more of, if maybe their phase 2 detoxification isn't optimally functioning because they have a deletion of a gene. So it just gives us a really good picture. So that's one of the tests that we'll do always, no matter where you're at in treatment and life. It's a wonderful test. Then the next thing is we do a lot of blood chemistry. It's far more involved than just a CBC and a CMP. And so I'm often arm wrestling with oncologists because I'm begging for vitamin D, for goodness sakes, or glucose, or all these markers like inflammation markers, CRP and LDH, all these different markers that tell us a lot about the cancering process to begin with, but also the inflammation in the body. Sure.
And the immune system. Yeah.
Yeah. Immune system, all of that. So those are ones that we do. The cool thing about a nutrigenomics report is you do it one time in your life. Mm-hmm. Nothing, you don't have to ever do it again. With blood work, we're monitoring that sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, just depends on where the client's at in treatment. Mm-hmm. Now, the other test that I love, and so when Erica told me that IHP was offering this, I was like through the roof thrilled, is a toxin test. And so the toxin test is so telling on what their toxic burden is.
Mhm.
I see, and this is just, it's so hard to see this pattern because it's one of those conversations that is overwhelming for families. But I see mycotoxins
Mhm.
as a significant issue in almost all of my clients. And so whether that was, prior to diagnosis, through diagnosis, we don't know when we take that test in diagnosis, but we know we have to clear it.
Mhm.
And so we can do just the normal mycotoxin test with you guys, like a solo, but the newer comprehensive toxin test that we're able to do also shows us heavy metals and environmental toxins. And so it gives me a really good indication of, okay, yes, heavy metals are definitely coming from chemotherapy, and it looks like they're not metabolizing them very well. So we need to make sure we're supporting detox pathways. Or environmental toxins. I ask, do you live by an airport? Do you live near a golf course? Like, why do you have all these exposures? And it helps them understand ways that they can start to clean up their environment. And, seeing these tests on paper is just really eye opening to the families as well.
Mhm.
So, those are the main tests that we do through treatment when they're in active chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery.
Yes, yeah, and the nice thing is while the information can be overwhelming, it does provide some clarity as to the why, and then that can turn into empowerment, right? I think mold for everybody is overwhelming because not only could it be a very pricey thing to fix in a home, but it's in our environment. It's depending on
Right.
where you live and where your home is. There's so many factors that are out of our control. And if you have genetic, issues with actually detoxifying it, then that's compounded. So it's one of those things that can feel overwhelming. But for so many people, kind of just knowing what needs to be fixed is half of you're halfway there. Now you can kind of take action and feel empowered to create some change. And I think that's where, a test like that is so beneficial.
It's so beneficial. And, you're right, it can be overwhelming. And even for us as practitioners and clinicians, like when you're seeing results like that, and then you're trying to put all these pieces together, it can sometimes feel overwhelming. And this is where I just say, you know what? I want you to choose the 3 highest priorities based on all you've learned from that initial interview with them and their intake forms. And we just start one at a time. And cancer is really delicate because I can't put someone through a 21-day detox when they're going through active chemotherapy. I can't do any like intensive detox. Now, what our goal is we use things like the daily detox or different supplements that keep the toxic burden low,
Sure.
but we can't stress the liver any more than it already is. And so this is where then the conversation comes into remission. And a really big misunderstanding is that when you ring the bell or you're told you're cancer free, they basically pat you on the back, say congratulations, and go on with your life. And you're
Mhm.
like, okay, wait, hold on a second. I was diagnosed with cancer, 6 months or a year or 2 years ago. I was just obliterated with cytotoxic therapies. And so I'm leaving this diagnosis actually sicker than I was when I was diagnosed with cancer. The cancer's gone, but I'm wrecked. And you're telling me to just go on with my life? And it's such a hard conversation because I know exactly what it's like to be done with treatment and have that, like, you're half terrified and half relieved,
Mhm.
and you've just overcome so much. And so to tell someone, dude, your journey is just beginning, can sometimes feel like a lot, right? Because they're like, what? I was just ran over 175 times, and now you're saying I'm just starting? Yes, because this is why we see recurrence and relapse so frequently is chemotherapy is a carcinogen. I mean, one
Mhm.
of the main number one side effects on most chemotherapy agents is secondary cancer.
Mhm.
So while we have to go through the treatment, there's so much we need to do to clean up the environment after. And so once we go into remission, that's where we do the stool testing and the Candida metabolic vitamins test and the HTMA test, the hair tissue mineral test, fatty acids test, inflammation test. Like, this is where we get to jump in and really do what I would say the big 5 to get a full understanding of where are they at right now. So now we have a good plan of how to step by step approach and rebuild and restore their body and their health and bring back that immune system function.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, in my opinion, I feel like that is such a vital step in the process because, like you said, there's so much that, yes, the cancer is gone, but there's so much repair and so much that needs to be done to prevent, reoccurrence, and to now start living in a way that's meaningful and not from fear, but just from a healthier, more abundant, life internally, and externally, hopefully as well. But setting the stage for a place where something like that can no longer thrive.
Yeah,
And that is really where holistic care comes into play, because the functional medicine lab testing, especially like something like the Big Five, gives you this 360-degree view of what are all the ways that we can optimize health and wellness here, so that like that's not even an option in the future.
exactly. One of the kind of tricks, clinical tricks or clinical pearls, whatever you want to call it, that I found that my clients really love is when we get the results from a test, Big Five, or if it's just the Candida metabolic test or whatever it is, to record. So a lot of times we're delivering results like this, like face to face or on Zoom. I'm saying, okay, we have your results, and I'm explaining it to them. That is overwhelming. It can be, especially because they usually come into the office and I like to save that time for more like, what questions do you have? Or what do you need to talk about? Kind of a thing, right? We're sometimes therapists and then we're sometimes practitioners.
Yep.
And so what I found to be really helpful with the testing, and it helps me as a practitioner, especially with something like the Big Five, is I will record myself and I'll have my camera on or off. It doesn't matter. Sometimes I'm doing it at 10 o'clock at night. So my camera's off. I'm sitting in my bed and I'm recording the audio and I'm screen sharing their test. And I'm saying, here's what I've seen. This is what I see. These are the high points I want to point out to you. And when I do this, this is what's beautiful about AI, if we can use it well, is I will then take my audio because it doesn't have any names or any, specifics, and I'll upload it into an AI channel and say, can you create a written summary? So now my client has this to continue to refer back to. So when we do the Big Five twice a year, they're able to go back if they, I'm working with hundreds of people. I don't remember everybody's details,
Sure.
but I can go back and listen, and they can go back and listen to see the progress that they've made or where we still need to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that I was recently just talking with another IHP about how like the structured data, how Equalife has like created the structured data format for that minerals and metals test, and how it kind of does something very similar where it gives a lot of language, easy to understand language, whereas before the minerals and metals test was just like a printout, and it was, I mean, German, for lack of a
Yeah,
better,
literally.
anybody. And people are able now to go back and look at the test and go, oh yes, okay, she was talking about stress, and this is, certainly what the part that she was referring to, because it's written in a language that people can understand and that
Totally.
they can resonate with. And it's a way to feel more confident in the results, because when a client feels confident or understands the results, I think that they're more confident in moving forward with what needs to be done to address the imbalances or whatnot. It's all about helping them understand what it's showing us, so that they feel good about moving forward with a treatment plan.
Totally. Yeah, I love that. I love that there's like a summary. And even from a clinician standpoint, a practitioner, like being able to see, oh, this is so helpful. I wouldn't have thought about that. But the summary from Equilife gives us more data.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Um, I love that you said, sometimes we're therapists and, practitioners, right? But I think that that is such an important piece, especially to the work that you're doing, right? We know that I've interviewed a few IHPs. One specifically is coming to mind, to like what she does. She has a child who has specific genetic based disabilities. She works a lot with moms who are caring for full-time care for genetically disabled children, and kind of we know the load that that can create on a
Mm,
family system, right? So if like a mom needs to just come in and cry, and
yeah,
you let her do that so that she can kind of relax her nervous system, and you can offer her all the support that I'm sure you're wonderful at offering, she's able to go back to that child maybe a little bit more renewed, heard, feeling supported, and like then that is good for the child, right? So like even when
Totally.
we're not just analyzing lab data, but that is also what AI cannot do. AI could tell you just about anything from but it will not hold somebody in a place of despair, trauma, hopelessness. It cannot do that. And I think it's so important for practitioners not to get frustrated with
Yeah.
the developments that are coming out from there, because I still think that one of the biggest things we are all starved for is connection. The more intelligent, artificial intelligence becomes a thing, people will continue to get more and more starved for just human connection and being heard and being validated and being held. And I think that that is something that we will never be replaced
It's
with.
That's so true. And you think about like what you said about just, letting a mom come in and break down. I think sometimes we have to remember, and this is what AI will also never do. AI's job is to answer your question and solve a problem in the one way they know how, right? They don't have all the information and no emotion. When somebody needs to come into your office or get on a call or do a Zoom and just be vulnerable, we have to also remove our like clinician hat and remember this we don't have to fix. Because sometimes I even catch myself like as I'm listening, I'm like, okay, they need this supplement. Oh my gosh, they really need to do this. They should do this therapy. I'm like, whoa, 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 that's not going to help them right now. Like just being heard and
Mhm.
seen is what they needed in that moment. So when we have those opportunities, and for some people that makes them feel, some practitioners that I know, practitioners I have in my office, like makes them feel a little uncomfortable. And I always say, you don't have to fix it. You're just listening. Like
Yes.
you're listening, taking internal notes. And down the road, you could see how that might play into some of their health stuff. And so we can revisit it, but you don't have to fix everything, especially when they're just sharing and being vulnerable.
Absolutely. Yes. Because sometimes we just want to be heard, and we want to know that it's okay to, have the feelings that we do, the vulnerabilities that we do. And when someone immediately comes in to try to fix it, then it feels like, yeah, this is like a bad feeling. Like this is
Yeah.
something I have to make go away, or I have to like, take something so that I don't sound so anxious, or you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
the supplement so your anxiety comes down.
Don't, you're like, that makes me feel anxious.
Right, right, right. But oftentimes there's a real reason, certainly in the line of work that you're doing, why a parent might come in and feel all those things, overwhelm, fatigue, right? So yeah, sometimes just being somebody that they can sound things off of is so
Yeah.
important. Uh, what do you find is kind of so do you find that a lot of the patients that you see, the clients that you have, are they coming to you from a place of like referral? Is it more that like they are wanting something additional to their care, or is it something that like are they seeking it? Are they seeing the value in it, or do you think it's something that they're like completely blind to that somebody else has suggested? I'm curious, like what the clientele is like. Is this all stuff that's completely new to them? Do you find that they're mostly people that were holistic minded before getting a diagnosis and now they're just continuing that? Is there like a shift in what you're seeing as far as who's seeking out functional care?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I think it's probably 50-50 when you is for the second part of your question, which is, are most of these people, is this idea of nutrition and detox and supplementation and changing their lifestyle, is that new or have they been used to it? And that's about 50-50. And it surprises a lot of people that, and just yesterday I had 3 calls with 3 new clients that their children have cancer, and they all had the same story. They're like, we resonated with you because we were like you. Our kid, we didn't vaccinate, we didn't medicate, we gave them organic food. They've never had a toxin in their life, and now they have cancer.
Mm.
And so I see that more than most people would imagine. And that speaks a lot to the genetics, right? And the environment. Not because cancer is not a genetic disease, but the environment can turn on or turn off certain gene expressions, which can then lead to disease. So I think it speaks a lot to emotion, which Dr. Tony addresses at his clinic really well. And it speaks a lot to the environment. And so 50% are like that. And then there's still work to do though, right? Because cancer is different. Now, all of a sudden, we're not giving multivitamins. We're not like we are being very targeted with the nutrients that their child needs, and we're cleaning up the diet even more. And then the people that come in that are just brand new. I mean, they were the standard American diet, very toxic lifestyle. This is all new to them. Of course, like any practitioner, we're just working with them at a much different pace of what we're changing with still urgency because we're in a very acute situation. Now, as far as like, how do people come? Are they being referred? Are they their doctor telling them? Their doctor is not telling them. In fact, I heard a reputation in the oncology space, which I'm proud of. That is, I am not conservative with my recommendations, and I'm not, because your child's life is on the line. So I'm not going to be conservative. And it's kind of a gift of not having a license and being a signing provider as I can be. And I talked to a medical doctor who kind of told me this, and he said, you're very blessed to not be a signing provider because you can do more as far as my recommendations, right? And of course, nothing I ever recommend is contraindicated with treatment or lessening the effects. It's actually enhancing it. But I'm fighting against oncologists all the time, and not usually directly. But I have parents that'll say, I started giving my child the organ complex that I tell every child that has, or every parent with a child with cancer, to get on the organ complex. And my doctor said not to. So it's a matter of just continuing to educate and reminding them their doctor knows one way to treat cancer, and that is with chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. They had nutrition as an elective. They know nothing about that. So trust them for what they do. Trust me for what I do. So referrals don't come typically from the medical side. They come from other parents. My social media channel, I just try to make sure I'm constantly educating and offering hope, connecting with families there. And yeah, referral, I would say just other people who know somebody. Everybody knows somebody that has cancer. And unfortunately, that number is growing, especially with kids. And so that's usually we don't do ads or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think because so much of our, environment is out of our control, air and there's things that we can do in our home, but there's so much within even people who think that they're eating healthy and right. There's always room for improvement where, we're being exposed to things that the human body was never meant to be exposed to,
Right.
had never been exposed to it at the amount that it is now. And yeah, it's unfortunately far too common.
Yeah, it really is.
Where are all of the places that you show up, whether it's social media or websites, if people wanted to connect with you further?
So I have, social media. I'm at Johnson. Our practice is at Biodynamic Wellness. I'm most active on Instagram. I have two, like I'm so busy with working with clients, and I'm like, to think about doing multiple places is hard. Website, seasonjohnson.com, biodynamicwellness.com. We also, if anybody knows of a child with cancer, we have a nonprofit as well. Called kickcancermovement.org. And we offer support and resources for families that have a child with cancer, all from the perspective of living intentionally and naturally. And I have my podcast, which I'm relaunching. I've postponed it when we left Mexico, I'm relaunching it this year in 2026. It's called Thrive Through and Beyond Cancer. So just really targeted on that topic and audience, having discussions like this. And yeah, and if you want to come see me in real life, if you're in San Diego, come say hi, knock on the door. Well, you don't have to. Our door is always open because we love fresh air. And we live in San Diego, so it can be. But yeah, come in and say hi. And we're about 50 steps from the ocean, literally. Like I walk out and walk right to Fletcher Cove. I know we're ridiculously spoiled. So it's I always tell my clients, they say, do I have to come in person? Because we work with people all over the world. Like, oh gosh, absolutely not. But if you do, you get to see the beach too. So
yeah, which has its own healing properties.
Totally. Yep.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for all the beautiful work that you're doing, and the way that you're making such a difference. Thank you so much for being a guest here on the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. This was such an enjoyable episode, and I thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Take care, Season.